Namaskar and Jai Hind. Yesterday we saw China unveiling its sixth generation fighter jet from Chengdu. To discuss this and the implications arising out of this, we have with us Air Marshal Anil Chopra. He's a fighter pilot, he's a test pilot, and he was a pioneer of the Mirage 2000 air fleet. Uh, Air Marshal Chopra is currently strategic advisor aerospace with Society of Indian defense manufacturers. Welcome to Samvad at Mayank, sir.
Thank you, Mayank. Always a pleasure joining up with you, and you make such a nice presentations, such nice interactions that you do with a large number of people. Thank you for inviting me, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming, sir. Sir, yesterday we saw the Chinese come out with their sixth generation fighter jet.
我操，这什么东西啊？这个有点可爱了啊！线上直播啊，各位。这他妈是东西。
Now, on the face of it, it looked very impressive. Although I am sure the technical details are not out as yet. But what do you make out of this at first sight?
Yeah, Mayank, the entire Twitter, social media has gone a little wild watching the pictures of the first flight, or I don't know if it's the first flight, but first flight which has been made public.
Yes, sir.
For the sixth generation aircraft. You know that, there are sixth generation programs around the world, but this is the first time somebody has actually flown a sixth generation aircraft. What are the details are not there, but a lot of debate is already going on in social media. And many professionals are trying to look at the shape of the aircraft, the number of engines, the, various other aspects to derive ideas. And it was, flown with the J-20 fifth generation fighter, which was escorting it. So you got an idea about the size, comparative size between J-20 and this one. So there is, the world is also concerned that the Americans, who have been talking about a sixth generation aircraft for nearly a decade, in fact, sixth generation aircraft is not very, very clearly spelled out yet. Some designs are in public domain, but clearly, the Chinese have stolen a march over the Americans and the rest of the world by having a sixth generation aircraft instead. A lot more needs to be, understood what exactly is there. But surely, what is clear from the picture is it's a large aircraft. It has got a diamond shape. It is tailless. It has got three engines. And looks more the size of a bomber. So maybe it's somewhere in between their future H-20 bomber and the F-20, somewhere that sized, aircraft it is. And I must mention, of course, it will have all the fifth generation qualities, but in addition, we'll have sixth generation qualities. Stealth will be inbuilt, I believe. It will cover multiple radar bands. Of course, there will be IR sensors, high quality sensors, so that it needn't transmit and yet be able to carry out their air-to-air or air-to-ground strikes. Yes.
Sir, till now we have heard that the F-35, the American fifth generation aircraft, was perhaps the most advanced amongst all the flying fighter jets. So how advanced capability wise, sir? I mean, I'm plane to plane. Will the sixth generation aircraft will be? I mean, when they are in combat together, what is it going to be like?
Yeah, see, first thing I must mention that we all have followed the F-35 program very closely for a very long time. There have been long delays. There were price hikes, and a large number of countries involved. 17 countries are already today having the F-35. Another 4-5 are have placed orders and will get in the next 3-4 years. So large numbers are going to be built. The US Air Force itself is looking at about 1,800 aircraft, in the Navy and Marines. They're also going to have significant numbers. So close to 2,500 will be with the US Armed Forces. And of course, many other countries are going to have in numbers of around 100 or 70 or some figures like that. So F-35 program, what Elon Musk is saying and some others are saying that, we try to package too many things. You had a VTOL version, we had a, short takeoff and landing version, and you have the normal aircraft version. All have been tried to be packaged into the same. So there are sometimes you make some compromises, but notwithstanding all that, the F-35 remains one of the top fighter aircraft in the world. The big thing is about its stealth. Some say it's a tennis ball sized radar cross section. The others say it's a ping pong ball. But whatever it is, you see, in a stealth aircraft, what is important is that if I can deliver my weapons and not be seen till the point of my delivery of the weapon, then I have achieved a lot. And if you can carry on following with the weapon for a little longer and still not be seen, that's a very, very big, advantage. And that is why the fifth generation, sixth generation aircraft have become very, very important. But of course, we all know that every country, including the Russians, the Chinese, we in India, we are working with the Russians to have a radar which will be able to see through stealth. You will have bistatic radars at different frequencies to be able to. So it's a cat and mouse, game. But certainly the F-35 today is the top-end aircraft. Now, since most of the sixth generation aircraft are still on paper, we have some idea of shapes that are evolving. We know what is NGAD going to be look like because it has already been shown. Some designs are already available in public domain. But once an aircraft flies, then you actually come to know, because that's a stage. It means lots of things have happened. A prototype has been built. There is for people to be able to see it, as we have seen in the sixth generation aircraft, the Chinese are. As I said, we are only 1 day old in the sixth generation aircraft because we have seen it only yesterday. But what all will be there? I'll give you some examples. Surely all sixth generation aircraft will be minus the tail fin. Now that is means that I do not require rudder control. I will do that rudder control using the the other surfaces, horizontal surfaces. I will use thrust vector, vectoring of the engine to be able to maneuver left and right. Or even in future, there are technologies which is air jets which will come out of the aircraft, extra flow from the engine, and these jets will be air will be used to maneuver the aircraft. So as of today, the first step is the tail. Now, why we don't want the tail is because it has radar reflections. So if you want a higher level of stealth, the tail must go. Means ultimately, I want least number of surfaces. So wing body, blending has to be done so beautifully. If there are too many sharp edges, there are reflections. How do you embed your engine is very, very important, because engines reflect your radar energy. The compressor inside the engine is like a wall, for radar energy. So how do you position them? I must also position the exhausts in such a way that the IR signature reduces, and therefore, if I can move the IR exhaust upwards somehow, then I have an advantage. So there are many issues, but clearly the aeroplane that we have seen yesterday, the Chinese aircraft, it has no tail, and that means no vertical fin and no rudder. So we are getting to understand that, and it's flying, it's flown safely, it has landed back. So therefore, we know that things are working. But to have reached that point, we must, whatever we may say about the Chinese, that they have been reverse engineering, copying all these years, but this is a lead. This is a first time that they have flown in aeroplanes. Others are still developing, and we do not know the timelines of the others till we physically see an aircraft being launched. Yeah.
So now I'll ask you to come to a very important point, very important for us, the Indian Air Force. We have not been getting very good stories in the sense developmental stories in the past. So about the generations of aircraft, we have been hearing of the Tejas Mark 1A being delayed because of, I believe, because of some engine issues with GE. Then hearing of multi-role fighter aircrafts, 114 purchase of them. Now, where does the Indian Air Force stand in all these generational things being done by the Chinese and the West? Where are we placed?
Yeah, Mayank, the fact that the government of India has decided to have a high-level committee headed by the Defense Secretary with DRDO chief on board, some air marshals from the Air Force, and some other government officials on board this committee, and they have to submit the report within the next 3 months, itself indicates that all us analysts who have been writing about so much more needs to be done with the Air Force and the service chiefs who have written to the government, repeatedly telling them that we are at an all-time low of 30 squadrons and we have a not only two front threat, but we also now have a Bangladesh who has, is antagonizing the country, and therefore we may have a three-front, situation. And all the more, we authorized 42 squadrons. 42 squadrons, many people question why do you require 42 squadrons considering the capabilities have gone up, and these 42 squadron authorization was done much earlier. But you don't forget that in the neighborhood, the Chinese already have a fifth generation aircraft flying in large numbers. The Pakistanis will acquire a fifth generation aircraft before us because they're not waiting for their own. They are already talking with Turkey, they are talking with the Chinese, they'll have a fifth generation aircraft. So the situation is very, very serious. And I'm happy that the government of India has formed such a committee, and I hope that the committee will, box somebody on his nose to get our country going. Now, look at where are we? LCA Mark 1 flew in 2001 in February with the first flight. 2015, we formed the first squadron with just 2 aircraft. Today, we are entering 2025, and how many aircraft? The Air Force has got 2 squadrons, a little over 40 aircraft, and that's no numbers. In such a large, long period. And when you compare the J-20 or the JF-17 programs, they have done, 5 times more aeroplanes in half the time. So if that be the case, somewhere we as a nation are not doing it right. There is something we have to do better. Mark 1A, it was to come to the Indian Air Force by March this year. As per the contract, 3 years, within 3 years, everything was known. GE engine was known. It was to come from outside. Now, somewhere, we can't all the time be blaming the supplier. There may be in some, but it's for us, the integrator, which is HAL. We should have found some solutions, even if you had to pull out our reserve of engines, which you might be keeping as a spares for your, LCA Mark 1. I don't care. Then we should have done a better job. But I'm telling you, I'll be very happy that if now, at least by 31st March, we get our first 1 or 2 aircraft. Now, when you are short by such a large number of squadrons and many more, we're the only operators of MiG-21s in the world. We are the only operators of Jaguar aircraft in the world. MiG-21, some very small countries are operating, but that doesn't matter because we are a big country. We are a powerful nation, 4th largest military, soon to be the 3rd largest economy, and we are not being able to get our numbers. And if you see the world's power index, the US, the Russia, and China, they are very close in total comprehensive national power, whereas we, India, who are number 4, is actually much, much behind all of that. So issue is not only about building up gap. Forget about the gap, but we should not let the gap continue to grow further. So, as I said, Mark 1, we have all that we have got. 1A, we have already ordered 83, plus another 97 committed. The process is on for signing of the contract for another 97. Now, what is the production rate? If you see the average, if we have got only 40 aircraft from whenever we started, making the series production aircraft till today, the numbers works out less than 8, 9 a year. And the peak that we have achieved is only 12 LCA Mark 1s we have produced in a year. Whereas, if we really have to complete the delivery of Mark 1As by 2029, you must produce 24 aircraft a year. Because only 5 years are left. 4 years, 4.5 years. So if we have to do this kind of deliveries, you must make a much larger number of aircraft. Now you have created another line in Nasik for LCA Mark 1A. So therefore, 2 lines in Bangalore, 1 line in Nasik. you should be able to make 24 aircraft, but where are the aircraft? They're not being made. Now, GE has promised that they will make up the backlog. That means instead of giving us 1 engine a month, they should give us 2 engines a month. Then only we make 24 aircraft in a year. I hope that's getting coordinated. The Raksha Mantri had gone to US in October. He has flagged the issue with the highest level in the government. So 2 issues. One is design and development. Second is production numbers. And in design and development, I don't want to stop only at Mark 1 and 1A. We have to go further. 1A is an improvement to make good the shortfalls that were there in the LCA Mark 1 compared to the SQRs that the service had laid out. But actually speaking, Mark 2 will be the aircraft which will be closer. I wouldn't say it will be equivalent of a Rafale, but very closer to a Rafale. But it is far. They are talking of first flight rollout in 25. They're talking of first flight in 26. Optimistic. But I sincerely, as a proud Indian, feel and hope that it actually happens. And if there was to be a first flight in 26, by the time we mature the technology to do the flight testing, we actually start making the production aircraft 6, 7, 8 years minimum. And therefore, already the government is saying, means the agencies are saying that 2031, somewhere around that, the LCA Mark II will come. And then from there, we have to go to the next AMCA. Only this year has the money been 15,000 crores been allotted for the AMCA. And we know that the AMCA first flight cannot take place, is going to take place close to 2030. And these are not my figures, these are the figures of DRDO and HAL. And from there, and the technologies are much more complex in AMCA. The AMCA is a totally different design, inlets of stealth. We're going to still use the G414 engine in AMCA, which is not going to give it the kind of stealth. So AMCA itself will be divided between AMCA Mark 1 and AMCA Mark 2. So there, optimistically, I'm saying 2035 is the earliest that AMCA can induct, but more realistic figure will be 2038. Now, if everything was to work perfectly, that means from now onwards, 0 delays, which is impossible. Even the Americans face delays. Then we will get our 42 squadrons in 2038, 2040, only if we buy another 6 squadrons of aircraft from outside. I'm a patriotic person. I believe in Atmanirbhar Bharat. But if due to some reasons we as a nation cannot produce those aeroplanes, I have no choice. And therefore the Indian Air Force have been talking about. We sent out an RFI for 114 aircraft in 2018. Within 6-8 months, the replies came. Since then till today, the request for proposal, which is the formal sending of request of the technical and commercial details so that we can choose the aircraft, hasn't yet gone. We are hoping there is a buzz that it will go in next 3 months. That means before 31st March, RFP. But after the RFP goes, if we decide to do a technical evaluation of all those 8 aircraft that are going to compete, it could take 5, 6, 7 years. And then by the time the order is placed and physically come, long delay. One school of thought is that all aeroplanes we have bought from Soviet Union or Russia till date have been G2G. All aeroplanes we have bought from 2008 till today from the Americans, G2G. And we should perhaps cut this whole selection process, choose your aircraft in whatever means. You have a paper discussion, you've got technical details, ask for commercial details, finalize the deal, and get going to save time. Another school of thought is that why go through this exercise that you already got a Rafale with you, you have got 2 bases, there are place for another 2 squadrons in each of these bases, we have paid for one-time, specific India-specific enhancements, which we don't have to pay again, and then just order more Rafales. And because Navy has also chosen Rafale M, if both services decide to have, there is a sizable numbers to make in India, and it becomes a little practical. Maybe we save some time. It's not that the the Dassault is telling us that they want such a large number of orders in the queue. They will have to double their production capacity, which are not easy. But notwithstanding something like that, we have to do. Time is in a sense, and it will be a shame for India if by 2029, which is the figures we are hearing, that Pakistanis will have a fifth generation aircraft, and we, which is an impoverished country, which is in debt, which is in a financial mess, and we in India, supposed to be soon to be the third largest economy, will not have a fifth generation aircraft. So there are serious issues, and I'm so happy that the government of India has decided to set up a committee to look at how do we go ahead. Yeah.
Sir, one final question. With the phenomenal growth of the Chinese are making, and Pakistan is basically a proxy for China in all senses, and Bangladesh getting live by the day, the border getting live by the day, sort of. Does this deficiency in the Indian Air Force make you apprehensive?
Sorry, say that.
Sir, does
Indian
this
Air Force?
the deficiency the Indian Air Force has as compared to the Chinese? Because we used to hear that the Chinese bombers will not be able to make it out to Tibet or carry heavy load, that sort of stuff. But they are making it up rapidly. So does this deficiency, it makes you apprehensive?
Yeah, see, I will tell you, there are two ways to. One is, till now we have been talking what India needs to do, where we are left behind, which is the areas that we must push. As far as the services are concerned, a couple of air chiefs, the previous air chief and the one before, made a statement that we have a plan B. Now, when you do not see, if the war was to start tomorrow, at a very short notice, for what some trigger incident like Galwan or Doklam happens and the war starts, it's the job of the armed forces to fight with what you have. And at any given time, if I have X number of systems with X capabilities, I must be all the time prepared for all front wars with that capability. This is what we call the plan B. So surely Indian armed forces are all the time ready for contingencies. Certainly, there is, in case the war is thrust upon, India has never been a kind of country which, has been going conquering around the world. We have got 5,000 years history, which shows us very clearly. But we have to defend ourselves. We have to defend in a manner that we should be able to give a bloody nose to our enemy if he makes an adventure against us. So that is very, very important. Yes, it is a thing of concern. But as I said, you have a plan B, you will put all your assets together. But if there's a two-front war, things complicate. So therefore, while you have a plan B, the country must get their act together, to do it. A critical, in LCA Mark 1A, by the time all deliveries are done, it will be only 60% indigenous. That will be in 2030. Right now, it's 55, 56, whatever numbers. Not much is going to change. This is not my figure. These are the figures given by the government in the parliament. Why? Because the aero engines is still not ours. It's coming. We don't make ejection seats. We perhaps don't need to. There are many. Till now, the Uttam radar has not started coming into the squadrons. The radar is still the Israeli radar. There are some avionics which are still imported. There are some weapons which are still on board the aircraft which are not our own. Mind you, we are doing well in our radars. I hope the Uttam radar gets on board. It's already on board. It's under testing, but it gets into the squadrons. More and more aerial weapons come, which are made in India. We are doing well on that. Whether it's Astra, the Astra 2 and 3 are under development, and Akash, ground to air, various other missiles, the BrahMos. They are fantastic. But as a country, if the armed forces have been tasked to defend this country, it is incumbent upon the government of India and the nation to give them assets to be able to fight well, to be able to win, to have lesser loss of life, not let territory be lost, etc., etc. And therefore, more needs to be done. There is a talk about if we our own fifth generation aircraft, for whatever reasons, cannot be accelerated. First, I do believe that the fifth generation aircraft must be brought under PMO directly. quicker decision making, quicker allotment of money. They are supposed to, DRDO supposed to, and HAL supposed to select a private partner. They must select immediately so that the private partner can bring in technologies, they can make best practices, they can get a CEO who will be well paid and who will work, who will be young, who will be dynamic, who would have success somewhere else, whatever. My contention is, as a nation, you must get going. We have done well in our space program. We have done well in nuclear programs, mainly because it's coming directly under PMO. And therefore, the decision-making cycle, the bureaucracy has been cut short and everything is much faster. The fund allotment is so much faster. Something like that. A task force approach, I think, is perhaps required. And there is, if notwithstanding all this, if there is a requirement, there is a talk. Do we need to buy 2 squadrons of 5th generation aircraft from somewhere? No, who that somewhere is? F-35, they are not willing to offer because you've got S-400, so that is their criteria. We are not going to jetson S-400. It's one of the good air defense systems of the world. So therefore, but can the Americans be arm twisted to give F-35 through back channel discussions? And now that we have signed all the communications, security, intelligence agreements with them, and maybe we can find a way out. We have to see. Do we want to go back to the Russians? We were with them in FGFA. In 2018, we walked off after paying a few $million, nearly $250 million in that program. But it was a joint program. But those people moved on. And today, Su-57 is flying. Numbers are still small. I don't have the technical details. The country will have to look. Is it become interesting now to buy a few Su-57s? I'm not sure, because there's no other option available with us. We can't buy the Chinese. We can't have access to Turkey. So the 5th generation is only between F-35 and the Su-57. So these are decisions which will have to be, it is not just a military decision. These are decisions where diplomacy comes in, the political geopolitics comes in. There are, relations between countries. Russia and India have had strategic relations. So something has to evolve clearly. Yes.
So as you said that the country needs to get its act together, and we hope we do, because time is running out fast. And I'm sure that China is not acquiring all this for defensive options. Thank you for sparing time out for us, sir. It's been very enlightening, and we hope to come back to you sometime soon. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mayank. Always a pleasure interacting with you, and keep up the great work that you are doing, and looking forward to visiting Varanasi one of these days again. Yes.
Hope to host you very soon, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you.